Welcome to Custom Home Builder Solutions, also known as CHS, a job costing, full accounting, and profit management software designed specifically for the professional home builder. Before we begin this video, I'd like to mention that I've left some windows open and there could be bird sounds, and there's a bass player in another room maybe doing some practicing, so we'll hope he doesn't get too loud, but sometimes I think it can help keep things a little bit lively on these job costing and accounting things. So we'll hope the dog doesn't bark. This particular video is basically a continuation of some previous videos where we were learning about how to add new jobs and to edit the jobs. And when we add new jobs, we were setting up things like who the buyer is, if it's been sold or not sold, the status if it's in inventory or closed, start dates, etc., the street number and address, and this is then a list of the results of setting up those jobs. And the management window here we can use to do quite a bit of great searching for jobs that we're interested in and then reports based on our search. But first of all, I'd like to just go over just a few of the things on this window. If you'll notice, there is the first thing that you could search for is just active jobs only, but before I do that, notice that this one is in red and it's marked as no, as not active. It closed in December 2014. Look at this one that closed. Let's just decide it's not active anymore so that it won't be included in some of the calculations and big lists of jobs. So I clicked on that and it changed to a no and it turned that one to red. So notice if I just click for inactive jobs, I'm just going to see those two jobs, or I click for active jobs, I'm going to see just the ones marked as active. And I don't know if this particular builder, this is a different list of jobs than we were using before, but they don't have any what if jobs set up, which we discussed about setting up in a job. It can be a job you set up, you just want to do some budgets for, but not have available for data entry. But this builder doesn't have any of those. So let's do the show all to bring back our list. Now notice that we have some alphabet and number buttons here, and these are for searching for ones with certain job codes. They've started all of theirs with numbers. So there's ones that start with 2, so if I click 2, I'm just going to see the 2. It can be handy, these letters, if you're using buyer names or something and you have a big long list of jobs and you want to get to a job quickly for editing it, etc., or you just want to search for something in particular. Now this button is for set all jobs to inactive. That's probably only used if you just have a whole bunch of jobs and you haven't been setting them to inactive. Maybe you want to set them all to inactive and then just go through and select the ones to mark as yes that are active. Maybe you only have a few that are active for some reason, and that's why this button is here, so you don't have to sit here clicking on all of them that are inactive to turn them inactive. It might be faster to just turn them all inactive and then set some as active. All this really does is allow you some good searching for active ones and reports, and like I said, some calculations. So that has to do with that type of searching. I'm going to come back to this search and the reports here in just a little bit, and but first we're going to talk about some other management tools here. I also want to mention that you'll always see a job that has the job code of H in your list. It's just so that you're aware of it. H actually means no job, or you can consider it your internal house job, since every record that you enter for accounting must have a job code because this is a relational database. The H job will be used for ones that maybe it's your telephone bills or other types of things you're entering in accounting that you don't need to apply to a job. You'll use the H job. Quite often you'll see the H job drop in as a default when you're entering accounting records. So that's why this says this, and that's also why all these things are blank for editing it or anything. You can't do anything to the H job. The program supplies it. The other thing you might try to do is you might decide, you know what, I don't want this job anymore. It's not going to be a job. I don't want it in my list. I want to delete it. Maybe it hasn't had much activity. And you use red X buttons in the program to try to delete something. And the program is going to search to see if this job code has been used anywhere in your database, and it will let you know what part of the database, whether there's a job budget or waivers or bills or whatever it may be. But this says it's been used in our accounting database. So what you can do, and this is also just a handy, this used is great because you can just look at all kinds of things that have been posted that have that job code. In this case, we're looking because you can look at a list of purchase orders, vendor bids, budget for the job, the actual costs that have been posted for the job. You can of course look at these in other places, but this is a handy. You can look. One really handy thing is vendors used on the job, which home builders often like to give a list of the trades and suppliers that have been used on the job at the end of the job to the buyer or somebody else that requests it. I think there's some sort of auditor or somebody that asks for the vendors used on the job with the total of costs paid, and so that's also there. But right now we're interested in what there is in our accounting database, and when we click that, we see there's just been a bill entered, and this journal AP means accounts payable, and we can tell it's a bill because there's a vendor assigned to it, and it's just this little earnest monies that maybe we just don't want to have it anymore. List and see what happens if we try to delete that job now. It may be that it's been used somewhere else, but apparently not, and so it's saying OK to delete this job, and I'll click OK, and it'll go away from our list just like we wanted. There may be of all kinds of other places it was used, and the program will tell you about that, and you can use the used button to go check that out. I am inserting a little bit in a previous video. The video that you've been listening to is an older video, and I'm back into current time a year or so later after that video, and you can see that we have some more information based on other videos that we've been showing you about who the builder is, some other types of things. But since we're talking about deleting a job, I wanted to show you the updates that have been happening since I did that first demonstration. It was a good demonstration about used, etc., so I kept that. But let's see what happens when I click the X button. You're going to see that there's a dramatic change in the messages that you're getting about where this job has been used. And this one, it goes in order, and the first message I got is that there's a budget set up, and we did that in a previous video. We set up a budget so that it has buttons where you can view the job records, the job budget records if you need to, just to look those over instead of having to go to the used button. It also, by the way, lets me delete all 0 budget records just because maybe you want to delete those to get rid of those in case that's all there is on that budget, or some things that may not be hidden. Just to help you, it's just telling you where it's been used and some tools that you can have now that you'll get when you go ahead and click on it, when you do things. If I click this X button for one that we've used, we're probably going to get told that it was used in our accounting records, just like the other one did on that previous part. And then it's right away going to let me go get all the accounting records where that job code has been used so that I can review them instead of you having to use the used button. And wherever else it finds the job, it's going to give you tips about it, reports about it, or something maybe you can do to remove the job from those things. So I just thought I'd point that out, and we'll get back to the older video now. One thing that's real handy, I was just taking this builder and filling in some dates, just making them up sort of based on some data that I could see. So, I had clicked the used, and I was trying to figure out when it might have sold or something, because some of those dates were missing. So I clicked this, and then I looked at job revenues to start seeing when they received some money on this job, and so I could come up with a date for filling in. But you can see how you can look up all kinds of things about the job. We won't look up all those, or this video will take forever. So that tells you what the used one is. Let's say we wanted to start a new job that is so similar to this, maybe this 107 NB, and we needed to start a new job. Maybe it's the same floor plan, it's pretty much going to have the same measure specs, etc. So I'd like to have a lot of the data from this job in my new job. So if I click copy right here by that job, and then copy from that job, and let's just call this copy job. Copied. Let's just call it copied just because. So that's our new job code. And what I want to show you real quickly is how much data comes in from the other job as soon as it gets open here. You'll see that it put it in the same subdivision, made it yes, made it the same type. It hasn't given it a street number or name because it doesn't know what that might be. It assigned it the same builder. All of these things can be changed if you like, but notice how the specs that they had came in, and of course, like we discussed in a previous video, you can change those specs. So a fair amount of the information, especially the specs and the measurements, I think is probably the most important thing that could save you some time by copying from another job. I'm not going to do anything to that, but I just wanted to show you how you can copy. And after you set up a brand new job, you do need to refresh this list to go ahead and see it in the list. You'll notice that that copied job is down here, and that it won't find that it's used anywhere because I just set it up so I can pretty quickly delete it and get it off the list. I just wanted to demonstrate that. One other thing I should mention before we start talking about search and reports up here is if you click on on column titles, notice these different job manager names, and notice if I hover over them, if they're too short, I can see what the full name is. Also the same over here for the subdivisions if you're hovering over, or if you hover over the buyer ID, you can see their last name in case that's not what you assigned as the ID, things like that. But if I click on job manager on the column title, it's going to sort ascending first. Notice how it's now in ascending alphabetical order. It has the Georges together, the Johns. If I click it again, it'll sort it upside down. Notice that now the Georges are down there. And you can do that on any column. So if I did status, I'd have all the closed ones together. And if I wanted to get them sorted by start date, of course, first there'd be empty ones. And if I can sort it upside down by start date, etc. Let's go ahead and resort these by the job code. That's how it opens, is sorted by job code. Now let's talk a little bit about the extensive searching that you can do of your big list of jobs. First of all, let's just decide, I don't know, maybe we're just interested in jobs that George Brown is the assigned job manager on. So let's just open this, and you'll see, let me talk about this search window a little bit. There's some tips down here for things that you can use to type in into fields, etc. But they're not too interesting here. You might do greater than something with a letter, but you can read these tips down here and get a lot of clues as to some symbols you can use in some of the fields. Now these are drop-down boxes or selection boxes, and you can click on something and just hold down your left mouse and slide down, then you've selected all those. Or you can click on something and then hold down your control key and then go select another one and skip some of them. I'm just interested in George Brown right now, but up here maybe I want all the Wayfair Drive ones, and I could do this, just scroll down and get those selected, but I'm going to go back to no selection for those. But maybe you get the idea there. Let's just search for ones that are George Brown, or managed by George Brown. So you'll see now in our list, that's all we're showing. And if I do some reports of these particular jobs, you'll see that this says reports based on search results. Maybe George Brown just wants some labels for his particular jobs that he's working on. So these are labels that will print on an Avery 5266, and they are only the labels for the jobs that I searched for. the jobs showing in the list. Let's go back to reports and labels, and here's a jobs list report of just those jobs. Now these open in what is called an HTML web reports for quick opening or for sending things to Excel if you like. They will not have good page breaks or good headings because this is actually, and you'll see page 0 of 0 on a lot of these reports when they're in the HTML view for quick view, and it tells you about that. So for the best view and getting you pages and you really want to print it out and keep it, you would export this to PDF, and then based on your browser, you'll probably get some sort of open button, and you'll see then that it's honoring pages, page 1 of 1, and if you had more than one page, these page headers would be on the second page. They're not like that on the HTML web view. So let's close that and see. This is an example of a jobs list report, just basic with some phone numbers of the buyer, when they started and sold, codes, etc. Then there's other reports grouped by status, and the status has to do with whether they were closed or whether they're in inventory, showing some duration of how long they've taken from start to closed. I'm going to start getting faster here. And then we would have a job managers report, and this will group by job managers. Notice this is George Brown, but that's all we searched for. But if you'd search for all your jobs, you'd have a grouping by job manager. Let's decide that we're interested in the durations for some reason, and we don't want to see the closed. We only want to see the closed ones, so it's a true duration. So let's go ahead and do a search, and let's just click on that we want closed only. You can also do closed from a certain date to a certain date, started from a certain date. I won't do all of that in the interest of time. I think you get the idea of from and to and doing your search. Now we only see these 3 jobs, and if we do a report, a job manager's report, you'll see that it's only those closed ones, and maybe this average makes a little more sense. As far as how long those took to do, who knows? You could also narrow it down to certain subdivisions, and so on. All kinds of ways you can do your search and see these in different ways. I'm trying to decide if I should stop this video. I guess not. Let's keep going, and let's go ahead and get back all of our jobs. You get the idea of searching, I think, so that you can just see things that you're interested in. Let's do a report here, and it's all jobs grouped by subdivision with some information about the subdivision, sold, start, and duration. It's just a jobs list. And like I said, you could narrow down to one subdivision for these reports. So that's just grouped by subdivision. Now we get some interesting monies information, revenues, and cost to date. Depending on the permission level of your users, some of them can print these and some of them can't when it starts getting to revenues. Here's, they're grouped by type, like this is custom, revenues received, actual jobs, percent of revenues, and then the total for customs, and then there's the specs, and then the total for specs and the percent of revenues. If you click something called job starts, and you might have searched for just ones for certain years, but this is doing all of them, so it's showing the total sales price, sold, start, closed, and you'll see that this is year 2013, 14, etc. The reports for sold show about the same thing, except in group by years with the contract price. You see the years and the amounts sold. And then this one has profit and cost estimates on ones that based on 2 close dates, and that'll be the 2 close year. And we don't have any close dates really entered that aren't closed already. See that? If they're closed already, they won't be on this report. Not marked as closed. But if there were years assigned, you could be evaluating what you might be making in the year based on the closed year. And it shows your contract price, what your current estimated cost at completion, your estimated profit, what revenues you received, so what you have remaining to receive, and your unpaid cost, and net to receive less unpaid, etc. So that's some pretty valuable information on jobs that are to close based on their years. And this will evaluate the closed ones. And since they are closed, it's just showing revenues received and the actual job cost, and the revenues less the cost, telling you pretty much what you made on each job. Now the other reports that are showing here, the profit and cash status of open jobs is a very valuable report. I'll be showing that more extensively when we're talking about percentage of completion, but I'll just let you take a quick glance at this. It's a really valuable report showing your original estimated profit, what your revised estimated profit is based on your estimated cost at completion, revenues remaining to receive, costs remaining to pay, what the balance, what cash has been contributed by that job, etc. And the job cash that's available after you paid any open accounts payable. You can see how valuable that is. I have now jumped again to the latest version of the jobs list, etc., to show a couple of more of the tools that are available now that weren't on the other one, and one that I didn't talk about yet. And that's over here where if you decide you want to change a job code for some reason, under change and code, you can click the code for that. So I'm just going to use a couple of my test ones to change the code. So I'll click code. And what will happen when you change a job code is that everywhere that this job code, the old job code, was used in CHS, all the records, all the accounting records, all the budget records, everything else will be changed to the new job code. So you don't have to worry about that. It's called Cascade Update. It's telling you that you should probably have other users out of the program while you're doing that in case they have budgets open with that old job code, or they're entering bills, etc. Then it explains about that Cascade Update, and it gives you a list of job codes that have already been used in case you need to look at that. But we'll still call this test. We'll now call it test 5 or something. And we'll click the button to change the job code. It says there are purchase or work orders for the old job code that may have used the job code in the PO number. Therefore, the job code cannot be changed. And there's a reason for that, because those PO numbers are assigned with that job code. Let's see what happens if I do this one. We'll make it test 5. And it's changing the job code. It tells me that it has been successfully changed. And then it will refresh the list so that it can be in the list however it was changed to. So now you'll see we have test 5 here. And you'll see that we probably have an audit about changing that job code. Change job code from test Z to test 5. So you'll see that there. And you'll notice that what's stored over here is test Z. So that if you ever wondered what happened to test Z and you went and searched for just the job code test Z, you can see that it was changed to test 5. The other thing that I'd like to mention that's on this window is, first of all, there's a little briefcase button here that will take you to all reports just for that job. That's what that briefcase means, is we're going to look at all the reports for that job. And so there's all kinds of options to look at actual job cost reports, budget reports, purchase orders, and these are just reports for that job. Also available, this briefcase is on the jobs dashboard for that job. And one other thing I did not mention when we were setting up jobs is, let's go to this Smith-John job that I use quite often, and let's do the edit pencil icon. And I did not mention about how you can upload some files, like maybe the contract that you have for the job, or some photo, I don't know. You can add two attachments here. Maybe it would be the plans that you're attaching as a PDF. And you can read the instructions, but if you need to upload one, these already have some uploaded. there will be a little upload icon, then it will let you browse to where you need to select that for upload. So you could attach two major things right here to the job if you want to. You can also always go to the file cabinet and add more uploads for the job. So I just wanted to point that out, that I didn't mention that before when we were talking about the job setup. And if you're making comments back and forth and so on, their comment bubble will be green if you've had comments back and forth related to this job. And you can click that to look at the comments. I won't make this so long that we'll do that. You can also see how, like I did a comment as you were looking at other things, that this is now called Builder ID. You can also see who is assigned as a construction manager and estimator over here. And so there's just a few minor, sort of changes to what I was talking about in the video that's a little bit older. So thank you for watching this, and I think I'm through with talking about job setup and jobs list.